This is the story that broke me inside. My best friend, the one who grew up with me, who slept in my room, who said she loved my mother as if she were her own. She was sleeping with my father. And the worst part? Meanwhile, my mother cooked for him every day, dreaming of renewing their vows, thinking that their marriage was being reborn. I found out everything. I had the proof. But can you imagine the weight of destroying the heart of the person who loves you most in the world? What would you do if you had to choose between telling the truth or protecting someone who has already suffered too much? I had to make that decision. And what happened next? No one was prepared to see it. Watch until the end. You will understand why. Sometimes love is being the person who breaks in order to save. I always thought that the worst kind of betrayal was between couples, that nothing could be more devastating than finding out that the one you love shared your bed with someone else. But I was wrong, because there is a pain that is even rawer, more bitter, the one that unites two people you love in a single lie, one that eats away at you inside in a silent way. My name is Isadora, and this is not just the story of my father's betrayal of my best friend. It is the story of the end of my faith in people, of the destruction of the only foundation I knew as a family, and it all started on an ordinary afternoon, like any other. My mother was in the kitchen, laughing as she prepared his favorite dessert. She had made lasagna, garlic bread, and fresh salad. It was a special dinner, celebrating what she called our return home. He had been away for 2 weeks on a business trip. He arrived with that tired smile, his hair messy, and his suitcase in his hand. He hugged my mother tightly, looked at me like someone who knew too much, and went straight to take a shower. I was sitting at the kitchen table, trying to look calm, but there was something there, in the air, that bothered me. A slight, almost imperceptible tension, like the buzzing of a mosquito that only you can hear. My best friend Anna had come to visit me that weekend. We grew up together, and since we were 7 years old, we had been inseparable. She slept over all the time. She knew every corner, every smell, every quirk of my mother's. And my father, well, he was always very nice to her. Too much so. But I never suspected anything. Never. Not back then. That night, dinner was filled with wine, laughter, and old memories. My mother was radiant, as if she were welcoming back her dream husband. Anna complimented everything, laughed out loud, told stories from school as if she were part of the family. And my father looked at her in a strange way, too intense, with a frequency that I only noticed because, for a moment, I looked at him as if she weren't my daughter, as if I were a spectator. It was quick, but enough. A second, a look, a discomfort that stuck in my stomach and stayed there. In the early hours of the morning, I went to the bathroom. I walked through the living room and saw a light on in the kitchen. I thought it was my mother, but when I glanced over, I saw my father standing in front of the refrigerator, talking quietly to Anna. They were too close, and when she laughed softly, he touched her arm in a way that you wouldn't touch your friend's daughter, or your daughter's friend. It was an intimate touch, a touch of someone who had crossed the line. I pretended not to see. I went back to the bedroom. I stayed there, with my heart racing, convincing myself that it was all in my head, that they were just talking, that it was late, that I was tired. But the next day, Anna left earlier than planned. She said her mother called her, and my father went out to take care of some things outside, even though it was Sunday. My mother spent the morning baking a cake that he loved, and I, sitting on the couch, trying to distract myself with anything, but feeling inside that something was wrong. Very wrong. And that feeling never left me. I started noticing everything. The schedules, the messages, the looks. My father started going out more. Anna started answering less. When we talked on video, she would look away, change the subject, and seem uncomfortable. And what killed me the most was the feeling that I was going crazy. Because I had no proof, only feelings. And do you know how hard it is to accuse someone you love based on feelings? It was like shouting into the void. And yet, I felt it. I could smell the lie in the air. A cheap perfume mixed with cigarettes, the same one I smelled that night in the kitchen. So I decided to follow him. I started following my father discreetly, like something out of a movie. I hitched a ride in a friend's car and went after him on a Friday when he said he was going to work overtime. What I saw destroyed everything. He stopped the car at a building in the city center. He went up, and I waited. I waited for almost an hour. When he came out, he had someone with him. It wasn't an older woman, nor a stranger. It was Anna, with her hair tied up, wearing a dress that I recognized as mine. And the worst thing, she laughed. She laughed at him like someone you laugh at someone you love. And he held her hand. They kissed, in front of everyone, without guilt, without fear. I don't remember how I got home. I only remember the feeling of being empty, of having lost everything, of looking at my mother, so innocent, preparing another dinner, as if there was still something to celebrate, and feeling anger mixed with pity. How could I tell her? How could I destroy what little she still had? But I didn't need to. 3 days later, I found a letter hidden inside Anna's notebook, which she had forgotten in my room. It was addressed to my father, and it began with a sentence that I would never forget. You promised you would separate from her after the trip. That letter seemed to burn in my hand. The paper was crumpled, the edges folded, as if it had been read and reread dozens of times before being forgotten there, in the middle of the notebook. The handwriting was hers, unmistakable, round and precise, like everything she did. I trembled. I sat on the floor of my room, leaning against the wall, and began to read. You promised you would break up with her after the trip. I can't stand being the other one, the hidden one, the fake friend. I want to live this for real, without having to smile at her while we make plans behind her back. I love you, but I'm tired of waiting. Each sentence was a stab. The words screamed at me, as if they were alive. It was all real. As real as the cheap perfume I'd smelled that morning. As real as the touch I'd seen in the kitchen. And now I had more than just a feeling. I had proof. A handwritten letter. A record of it all. The betrayal wasn't just carnal. It was emotional. It was intimate. It was cruel. They had a relationship. They loved each other. And my mother was just the obstacle between them. I got up from the floor, took a deep breath, and hid the letter inside my backpack. I didn't know what to do with it. Tell it? Show it to my mother? And destroy her world with a piece of paper? Or pretend nothing happened and wait for fate to solve it? But how could I keep quiet when everything inside me was screaming? I spent the next 2 days in silence, avoiding my mother, avoiding my father, ignoring Anna's messages. I didn't reply, I didn't answer them. I just watched. My father was lighthearted, almost happy. My mother was excited, thinking that the marriage was entering a new phase. And inside, I was in ruins. At night, I could hear my mother sighing as she made the bed, rehearsing a surprise she wanted to give me over the weekend, renewing our vows. She talked to herself about the rings, about how he seemed more in love. She had no idea that that sparkle in his eyes wasn't meant for her. On Tuesday afternoon, I decided to do what I feared most. I made an appointment with Anna. I told her I needed to talk, that it was urgent, that I wanted to see her before her weekend trip with her family. She accepted without hesitation. We arranged to meet at a discreet cafe in the neighboring neighborhood. I arrived first. I chose the table furthest away, and when she walked in, I felt my stomach turn. She looked the same, with the same blue blouse she usually wore on our outings, the same sweet smile, as if nothing had happened. He sat down in front of me, rested his hands on the table and said, "You look terrible. Did something happen?" It took me a few seconds to respond. I took the letter out of my backpack and placed it on the table. She froze. Her smile disappeared. Her hands trembled slightly, but she tried to maintain her composure. "Where did you find this? Does it matter? Isadora, it's not what you think." "Oh no? Then explain it to me. Because what I'm thinking is that you've been sleeping with my father for months, that you look at my mother, sit at our table, and still have the nerve to call me sister. She looked around, trying to hide her panic. Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no remorse. There was fear. Fear that I would tell. Fear that she would lose what she thought she had. I swear I tried to resist. It happened, and then it was hard to stop. Hard to stop? You would come to my house, sleep in my room, and the next day kiss my father. That wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And you chose him. She tried to hold my hand, but I pulled away. I felt disgusted. At him, at her, at myself for not realizing it sooner, for allowing it to happen for so long. He said he was going to break up with her, Isa. That he didn't love your mother anymore. That you were only together for convenience. My mother cooks for him every day. She takes care of the house. She washes his clothes. And she still talks about him as if he were a prince. Is that convenient? Anna didn't answer. She remained silent. The waiter walked past us, asking if we wanted anything. Neither of us answered. Then she stood up, took the letter, and tried to smile. Just give me some time. I'll work this out with him. I promise. There won't be time. No promises. You won't solve anything, because I'm going to tell my mother. Today. She froze. And then, for the first time, she dropped the mask. Her voice came out drier, colder. If you do this, Isa, you will destroy your mother. You will destroy her. And that will be your fault. I stared at her for long seconds. The woman who called herself my friend, who was my confidant, my accomplice, my mirror for years. And now she threatened me with the pain she herself had caused. Is it my fault? I asked, almost laughing nervously. I'm just saying that there are things that are better left as they are. She left the cafe without looking back, and I stood there, alone, my chest burning. Her words echoed like a curse. You will destroy your mother. But I already knew that the destruction was not mine. It was theirs. I returned home with the letter in my hands. My mother was in the backyard, hanging out clothes, with her hair tied up and her apron dirty with tomato sauce. She smiled when she saw me. A sincere, pure smile. It broke me in half. Did you bring bread? She asked. Yes, I did, I replied, my voice almost breaking. And then she called me inside. She said she had something to show me. A surprise. We went in. We went to the living room. And there on the table were 2 new rings inside a little velvet box. I'm thinking about asking your father to marry me again, Isa. What do you think? And in that moment, I realized that telling the truth might be crueler than keeping the lie. The rings glistened in the late afternoon light, like 2 small poisons, wrapped in ribbon and hope. I looked at them and felt a physical pain, as if something was tightening my throat from the inside. My mother smiled, excited. She said she was thinking about making a special dinner, inviting some close friends, and surprising my father with the proposal, as if 30 years of marriage hadn't been enough for her to still want to win him over again. I know it may seem silly, but we went through some difficult times, right? Now I feel like things are getting better, that he's more present, more affectionate. It's like I have the same man I had when we first met. I wanted to scream, to say that that affection was just a reflection of guilt, that every smile of his hid a night with my best friend, that the touches weren't passionate, they were strategy. But I couldn't. Something inside me paralyzed me. It was as if every unsaid word numbed me a little more. What was stopping me? Fear? Compassion? Or was it the desperation of not wanting to be responsible for the ruin of someone who had always given me everything? That night, I pretended to go to bed early. I closed the bedroom door, but I stayed awake, lying down, with my eyes fixed on the ceiling. The house was silent. My father arrived around 11. I heard his footsteps crossing the hallway. His low voice, the kisses he exchanged with my mother, whispers, muffled laughter. How did he do it? How did he look at her after everything? And how could she? How could she love someone so much who was so far away from her, even though he was right next to her? The next morning, my mother was preparing breakfast with a lightness in her eyes that made it hurt even more. She invited me to eat, but I refused. I said I was going out. I grabbed my backpack and left aimlessly, walking through the streets as if the world had lost its color. I arrived at the school where Anna was doing her internship. I didn't intend to see her, but my body seemed to be pulling me there like a magnet. And when I saw her across the street, laughing with a group of children, my blood boiled. She didn't see me, but I saw everything. Her cell phone rang. She answered it, smiling, and she said a sentence that burned my ears. "Just one more week, love. I promise. Love." She called my father love. In the middle of the day, in the middle of the world, I went home with my heart on fire. The urge to tell everyone everything was there, throbbing. But my mother was waiting for me with lunch ready, saying that she had booked a small room to renew our vows. She showed me photos on her cell phone, dress models, simple decoration ideas, and I just listened, like someone watching a silent film with the sound blasting inside their own head. In my room, I looked at the letter again. The same sentence haunted me. You promised you would separate from her after the trip. So that was it. They had a plan, and that plan had a deadline. I was just a spectator to the destruction of my own family. The next day, I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell, but I wasn't going to sit around either. I wrote a letter, addressed to my father, and I left it on his bed. I told him everything I knew. I told him I saw them both, that I read the letter, that I knew everything, and that if he didn't tell my mother by the end of the week, I would tell him myself. Not out of revenge, but out of respect for the woman who had spent her whole life believing in him. That night, he came home with a strange look in his eyes. He stayed in his room longer than usual. He went out to dinner with us, but he was quiet. My mother noticed and asked if he was tired, and he just said yes. But his eyes were always looking at me, restless, and I kept quiet, hoping he would have the courage. 2 days later, he came to talk to me. He invited me to talk to him in the garage, away from my mother. He was nervous. His hands were shaking. His face was drawn. "Isadora, I don't know what to say. I made a mistake. I got lost. You don't need to explain yourself to me. Explain it to her. She deserves to know. It's not that simple." "No? Because sleeping with your daughter's friend is simple?" He lowered his head. For the first time, I saw real guilt. Not just fear of being found out, but remorse. I was going to finish. I swear. But she's so happy, so excited. I can't. So how long would you rather have her live a lie? How long, Dad? He didn't answer. He just said he needed to think, that he needed time. But the time he was asking for was running out. And the next day, while he was leaving once again to take care of work, I grabbed my mother's phone with shaking hands and decided to look for it. Messages, emails, anything. But I found something much worse. Photos of Anna in a hidden gallery. Photos of her lying on my parents' bed, smiling, in her underwear, holding my father's ring, and a recording, a video, short, but enough. She said, "Have you thought about when it's just the two of us here? When she's no longer a problem?" That video changed everything. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a plan, a trap, an announced cruelty. That phrase in the video kept echoing inside my head. When she's no longer a problem. Said like that, lightly, with a lazy, mischievous smile on Anna's face, as if she were talking about an old piece of furniture that would soon be discarded. And the worst part? He laughed. He didn't argue. He didn't disagree. He just laughed, as if that idea had stopped being absurd a long time ago. I put my phone away with trembling hands. My heart was pounding in my throat. Something had gone beyond a simple fling. This was a plan, a threat. And my mother, that sweet woman who spent her days taking care of the house, the details, the feelings of others, was there, in the middle of it all, blind, vulnerable, thinking she was living one of the best moments of her marriage. I went up to my room and locked the door. I leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. I needed to act. Fast. I thought about going straight to the police. But what would I say? That I found a vague video with a suspicious phrase. without any context. They would laugh in my face. And what's more, if he found out that I had been using my mother's phone, he might retaliate. And I couldn't let her be alone in the house with him. Not anymore. I plucked up the courage and called Anna. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, Isa. Do you have a minute?" She hesitated. "Sure." "Did something happen?" "It did happen. I found the video." Silence. A dry silence. And then her breathing quickened. "What video?" "You know the one. The one where you say my mother would soon no longer be a problem." And he laughs. "It's all recorded. It's saved. I've already made a backup." She took a deep breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was different. Cold. Unmasked. "That doesn't change anything, Isadora." "Yes, it does. Now I am not alone anymore. And if anything happens to my mother, if she trips on a step, cuts herself with a knife, if she gets sick for any reason, you two will pay. I swear. No one will hurt your mother." "Really? Because until yesterday you said you loved her like a second mother." "I do, but I love him more. And he promised me. And you know what's worse? He can't stand this life anymore. He just doesn't have the courage to leave. But he has the courage to keep lying. You're sick, Anna." "You're just jealous." "Jealousy?" "Yes. Because I got his love, and you just got the leftovers." She hung up. That call gave me chills. Not just because of the audacity, but because of the control. Because of the coldness. That wasn't the Anna I knew. She was someone else. A version shaped by lies, by greed, by the need to win, to take everything the other woman had, including the life she considered deserved. I waited for my father to arrive that night like someone waiting for a bomb to explode. He came in smiling. He kissed my mother on the forehead. He sat at the table. He commented on the traffic. He acted like a common man. But I saw it. I saw the darkness in his eyes, the lie hanging on his shoulders. And when he met my eyes, for the first time, I didn't look away. He felt it. "Isadora has been acting strange these days," he said, as if commenting on the weather. "Oh, it must be PMS," my mother replied, laughing. I swallowed hard. I finished eating in silence, went to my room, and began to put together a dossier. I saved the images, the video, the letter, the dates. I wrote a timeline, and I printed everything out in secret on the school's photocopier. I put it in a manila envelope. I wrote on the cover, "If anything happens to me or my mother, give this to the police." I put it in the mailbox at my aunt's house, who lived in the neighborhood next door. It was no longer paranoia. It was self-protection. The next morning, my mother went out to sort out the details of the vow renewal. I stayed home. My father came into the room a short time later. He locked the door. I was sitting on the bed. The envelope with the evidence was safely tucked away, but he didn't know it. "We need to talk," he said, pulling up a chair. I nodded. "I saw the video," I said before he started. He stopped. He stood still for a few seconds, and then the mask fell off. "You don't understand. None of this was intended to hurt anyone. When she's no longer a problem. That doesn't sound like it's about not hurting. It was just a figure of speech. Anna is intense. She exaggerates. And you laughed. You didn't disagree. You let it happen. I'm not a monster, Isa, but act like one. And now I want to know, how far will you go?" He was silent. He stood up. He walked to the window, and he said, "You want to protect your mother. I understand. But the truth will kill her. And will the lie save her? You will spare her. At least for now. Are you going to leave the house? Not now. Then it will be over. Not now either. So what? Are you going to continue living in two worlds? Until when? Until she leaves me. It destroyed me." He didn't have the courage to leave, so he expected to be hated. I expected my mother to find out on her own and kick him out so he wouldn't have to make the decision. A coward. A selfish man. A weakling. You have no right to use her love against her. He turned his back and left the room. And there I was, with the feeling of living with a stranger. an enemy. That night I wrote a letter. To Anna. A different letter. Tough, sincere. And with it, I enclosed a copy of the video. I told her that if she didn't step away, if she didn't leave my family alone, I would make it public. I would send it to all her colleagues, her parents, her internship supervisors, and she would lose everything. I slipped the letter into her purse 2 days later, while she was having coffee at the bakery on the corner. I made it seem like an oversight. She would find it later. And she would find it on the same day that my mother, without knowing anything, told me that she had bought a dress. A simple, white, hand-embroidered dress, to renew her vows with the man who was silently destroying her soul. Did I find it pretty? She asked. It's beautiful, I replied with contained tears. She smiled and hugged me, and I swore to myself that she wouldn't go up to that altar without knowing the truth, even if she hated me afterwards, even if it all ended there. Because sometimes, loving someone is ripping off the blindfold that keeps them blind, even if they hate you for it. The dress hung behind her bedroom door, like a cruel irony sewn into hope, white, with small floral embroidery. My mother admired it in silence, as if she were reliving a youth she thought was lost, and now returned by the hands of the man who had betrayed her with the girl she had fed, counseled, and embraced as a daughter. The dress was not just fabric, it was a symbol of forgiveness, of a new chance, of a new beginning, but also of illusion. I watched everything silently, in a state somewhere between despair and calculation. I knew that time was running out, that the silence was suffocating me, that if I didn't speak now, I would be an accomplice. But at the same time, I felt an almost childish fear of looking into my mother's eyes and destroying the ground beneath her feet, the fear of seeing her break, of seeing her eyes go blank, the woman who taught me to never be silent, and who now only breathed because of a lie. On Saturday, 2 days before the vow renewal ceremony, we went to the salon where she was going to get her hair done. She wanted my opinion on everything: the color of her eyeshadow, her hairstyle, even the type of nail polish. And I responded with a tightness in my chest. When we left, we stopped at a bakery. She chose the cake. She said it would be simple, 2-tiered, with lemon filling. She asked me if I thought he would like it. I wanted to scream. Tell him that he didn't even know what lemon was, that his mouth was used to Anna's taste. That night, I locked myself in my room and watched the video again. Not to grieve, but to strengthen myself, to remember why I needed to do what I was going to do. I took everything, the video, the letter, the screenshots of the messages she had sent to my father, messages I was able to retrieve from the cloud, and put them in a white envelope. I wrote on the front, in big letters, "You need to see this before you say yes." On Sunday, the day of the ceremony, I woke up early. She was radiant. She had spent the morning taking care of her hair, makeup, and clothes. The house smelled of flowers and freshly baked cake. There would be few guests, just close relatives and 2 or 3 friends from the neighborhood. My father was quiet, but he tried to smile. The tension between us was almost palpable. He knew I was about to do something. When my mother came out of the bathroom, ready, beautiful, with her white dress and her hair done, I felt the ground shake beneath me. She was happy, a pure kind of happiness, naive, unaware. She looked at me and said, "Do you think he'll still love me when I'm all wrinkled?" "He should, Mother. At least he should." She laughed, and in that moment, I knew I couldn't hand over the envelope there, in front of everyone. I couldn't break it in the middle of a celebration. It would be cruel, so I decided to do it differently. I waited. I took a deep breath, and I held on until the last moment. The ceremony was quick. My father held her hands. He said memorized words. She cried. Deep down, I felt like I was witnessing a funeral, not of a wedding, but of everything that was still true. After the exchange of rings, the guests applauded. We took pictures. My mother was ecstatic. After the party, when we were already home, with the dishes in the sink and the remains of the cake in the fridge, I asked her to sit with me in the living room. We were alone. My father had gone out to buy wine. I handed her the envelope. She thought it was strange. What is that? Just read, please, but read alone, in your room. And when you're done, call me. She didn't understand, but she respected it. She went upstairs with the envelope in her hands, and I stayed there, sitting on the couch, listening to the sound of footsteps coming up the stairs. The silence that followed was absolute. No noise, no sound. The minutes stretched out like hours, until I heard the bedroom door slam, loudly. The first thing that broke was a lamp, then something made of glass. She screamed, she cried. I ran upstairs. When I opened the door, she was kneeling on the floor, with the letter in her hand, her eyes in shock. "Is that true?" she asked, her voice breaking. I could only nod. She was silent for long minutes. She was breathing as if she were drowning. Her face was disfigured by pain. She looked at me with empty eyes, as if she didn't recognize me. "For how long?" he asked. "At least 6 months. But I think more." She lowered her head. She cried silently. And then, as if gathering the last strength in the world, she stood up. She walked to the bathroom. She washed her face, and she simply said, "Stay here. I need to go out. Alone. Mother, please." I obeyed. She left. She left her cell phone. She took only her purse and the envelope. I didn't know where she was going. I called her 30 minutes later. Nothing. An hour. 2. It was already night when she came back. She came through the door with a cold face, her eyes hard, but different from before. She wasn't fragile anymore. She was firm. Scared, but firm. "I went to her house," he said. "From Anna? She wasn't there, but her parents were, and I gave the letter to her mother. I told her she needed to see what their daughter had done. And him? You'll know tomorrow. Today he'll sleep peacefully. But tomorrow, Mom, forgive me." She hugged me, tight. We cried together. The next morning, she got up before me. She put on the simplest clothes she had. She drank coffee in silence. And when he came into the kitchen, she just handed him the same letter, the same video, everything. He read it there, standing. When he finished, he sat down. Silence. No defense, no apology. She simply asked, "Do you love her?" And he answered, "Yes." My mother then took the new ring off her finger and placed it on the table. "Then go, but go today, and never come back." He left, without a suitcase, without words, and on her face, there was no anger, only mourning, for everything that was, and everything that will never be again. He left without saying a word. He just looked at my mother with an expression that was a mix of shame and relief, as if someone had finally made the decision for him that he had always been afraid to face. And my mother just watched him go, her eyes dry. No crying, no screaming. Like someone watching the end of a movie that was too long, and she already knew the outcome of it long before the final scene. I was standing on the stairs, watching everything from above. My heart seemed to have stopped beating. The silence that fell in the house after he slammed the door was so deep that I could hear the kitchen clock ticking like a war drum. My mother sat there, at the table, with the still warm cup of coffee in her hand. For minutes, hours, I lost track of time. I went down slowly, afraid of interrupting that moment. I sat next to her and remained quiet, until she said, "We think we know someone because we sleep next to them every day. But sometimes, the biggest stranger in your life is the person who is there every day by your side, holding your hand." I didn't know what to say. She let out a long sigh, the kind of sigh that carries decades of memories. He was my first everything. First love, first kiss, first man. We met when I didn't even know what I wanted to be. I bet everything on him, Isa, everything. And he bet on me, up until halfway. Then he got lost. Or he lost me. She got up, washed the cup, took off the ring she had put back on out of habit, and left it on the sink as if she were letting go of a weight. She went up to her room and didn't come out for the rest of the day. In the following days, things happened in slow motion. My mother called her closest friends, telling them that they were separating. She didn't tell them why. She just said that it was time, that there was no point in insisting anymore. Some asked, others respected it. The neighbors, as always, started to whisper. He never came back. He called to say he would come get the clothes, but only if she wasn't home. He sent me a short message. "I'm sorry for everything." I didn't respond. Not out of hate, but out of exhaustion. Sometimes silence is the only fair response to someone who made so much noise about their own cowardice. Anna, on the other hand, disappeared. The school where she was doing her internship received an anonymous tip with a copy of the video. I don't know who sent it. My mother swears it wasn't her. I don't either. But someone did it, and it was enough to get Anna removed from the project. I saw on her social media that she stopped posting. Her parents came to our house a week later. Her mother was embarrassed. Her father was furious. They wanted an explanation. My mother simply replied, "Take care of your daughter," because I'm already too busy trying to take care of the pieces she left here. After that, we didn't see them anymore. The house was different. Silence became routine. The television was off. His room was locked. The chair was empty at the dining table. But little by little, my mother began to find herself again. She started walking in the park every morning. She started reading more. She started cooking less, which was a good sign, since before she would retreat to the kitchen when she was trying to ignore pain. One of those mornings, while she was cutting fruit at the table, she called me with a calmness that surprised me. "How long have you known?" I swallowed hard. I had expected this question, but I didn't know when it would come. I suspected it first. Then I found a letter. Then I saw it. She nodded, as if she understood. "And you kept quiet because I didn't want to destroy you. Because I love you. And I didn't know how to do that without breaking you too." She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was a full smile. "You broke me, Isa, but you broke me to save me. And that is true love. Thank you." We hugged for long minutes. There, in that gesture, was everything that words could not convey. The mourning, the relief, the new beginning. It was that same day that she decided to open his room. She went in, gathered up his clothes, took out his photos, cleaned out his drawers, and for the first time, I saw my mother free. For real. She left an envelope with documents, bank papers, and a letter on the bed. "It will be the last time I write to him," he said. "You didn't tell me what you wrote, and I never asked. Some ghosts need to be buried without witnesses." In the weeks that followed, life began to return to normal. Less noisy, more sincere. And then, a month later, something unexpected happened. I received a message. It was from Anna. Short, to the point, but with a weight that froze me. "We need to talk. It's serious. It's about your father." And it was at that moment that I realized that story wasn't over yet. Anna's message made me shiver inside. After everything, after disappearing, after destroying a family, after not even showing up to apologize, she simply resurfaced with an enigmatic sentence. "It's serious. It's about your father." It took me a while to respond. I thought about ignoring it, blocking it, pretending I never saw it. But something about the way she wrote, dry, without flourishes, without manipulation, bothered me. She no longer seemed like the Anna who used words as traps. She seemed scared. I simply replied, "Speak." The answer came quickly. "I need to see you. It's about something I found out. I can't write." We arranged to meet at a public place. A bench in a square in front of a bakery during the day with a lot of traffic. I went alone. I sat on the bench and waited. She arrived looking shocking. She was thinner. Her eyes were sunken. Her hair tied up in a messy way. She was wearing a loose blouse, no makeup, and her face looked like someone who had seen more than she could handle. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting down next to me. I didn't answer. I crossed my arms and waited. "I know you hate me, and I deserve it. But I'm scared. And you're the only person who will understand what I'm going to say, even if you don't want to. Speak up, Anna. She took a deep breath. She was shaking slightly. She looked around, as if she was sure she was being followed. After everything that happened, I thought he would stay with me. But he disappeared for a few days. He said he needed space. I didn't insist. But when he came back, he was different. Cold. Withdrawn. Threatening. I frowned. Threatening how? He said I had to delete everything. The messages, the photos, the video. That if I ever spoke to you or your mother again, he would make me an accomplice in a fraud scheme he was involved in. I laughed at the time. I thought he was bluffing. But then, she took a folder out of her bag. She pulled out some papers. She handed them to me. They were bank documents, spreadsheets, statements. One of them had my father's name on it, and another, my mother's. He used her name to move money, in accounts she didn't know existed. Money laundering, a dirty scheme to divert funds. I don't understand it all, but I know that if they investigate this, she could be implicated without even knowing it, because it's in her name, and he never told anyone. I read every line with my heart racing. This was real. This was serious. And now my mother, in addition to being betrayed, was at risk of being arrested for something she didn't even know existed. Why are you telling me this? She hesitated. Because I was stupid. I believed he was going to start from scratch with me. But now I know. He only used us. He never loved anyone but himself. Not me. Not you. Not your mother. And what do you want now? Forgiveness? No. I just want you to protect her. And maybe, if there's time, you can stop what he's trying to do. What is he trying to do? She was silent. Then she took a cell phone out of her pocket. Listen to this. It was a recording. My father's voice, clearly angry. Isadora is a problem. And if she keeps snooping around, she'll end up like her mother, with her life destroyed. Do you think I'm going to let that happen again? She won't bring me down. Neither will she. Neither will her daughter. I stopped listening. I didn't need any more. I got up from the bench. If you really want to redeem yourself, send me everything. Everything you have. Now. She emailed me the files, photos, audios, PDFs, everything. And before I left, she grabbed my arm. Isa, I never planned this. I swear. I just fell in love. And I was stupid. Forgive me. I can't. Not yet. Maybe never. But thank you for letting me know. I walked home with sweaty hands. I walked in silently. My mother was on the porch, watering the plants. I went over to her, sat down next to her and said, Mom, we need to talk again. And you're going to have to be stronger than ever. I showed her the documents. I showed her everything. She turned pale. She didn't cry. She just listened. She read. She understood. Did he put my name on those documents? Yes. And you're messing with dangerous people. If this gets out the wrong way, they'll investigate you. You could be held accountable for something you didn't do. She stood up. I'm going to the police station. Today. I'm going to get ahead of myself. Report it. Explain everything. With the truth on my side. Are you sure? He destroyed my marriage, my faith, but he won't destroy my freedom. We went together. She handed over the papers. She gave her statement. The police chief was clear. She was doing the right thing. The investigation would remain confidential, but she had to be careful. Not tell anyone, not even him. That night I got a call, unknown number. Isa, it's your father's driver. He had an accident. Someone hit his car. He's in the hospital. He's in serious condition. And in that moment, I realized that the end of that story might not be with prison, but with death. The news fell upon me like an avalanche. My father, hospitalized, accident, serious condition, and even with everything he had done, the betrayal, the lies, the forged documents, the destruction of our family, my heart reacted automatically. It raced, tightened, became small. My mother was in the room when I hung up. I walked in slowly. still holding the phone in my hand, and said, "It's Daddy. He's in the hospital. Serious accident." She looked at me for a few seconds without blinking. Then she lowered her eyes and sat on the edge of the bed. She didn't say anything. She didn't cry. But her silence was deafening. "Do we have to go?" I asked, not knowing what was right. She raised her head slowly, and, with an almost supernatural calm, she answered, "No. Now he is where he put himself. And I am where he left me." I stood there, still, listening to the ticking of the clock on the nightstand, trying to understand what I was feeling. Part of me wanted to run to the hospital, see if he was okay, ask why. Why all of this? Why he had destroyed an entire family with such carelessness. But another part, the one that had matured through force, knew that that wasn't my place anymore. Not after everything. The next morning, I got a call from the hospital. It was from the social worker. She wanted to know if any of his immediate family members could come in to discuss legal matters. He was conscious but weak. And he wanted to talk to me. I told my mother. She just nodded, but didn't offer to go with me. I took a taxi and went. On the way, memories came back to me like razors. Him teaching me to ride a bike, taking me to school, holding my hand during my first vaccination, smiling at me on my graduation day. How does someone like that get lost? When does love turn into a shadow? The hospital was cold, white corridors, the smell of disinfectant, and a wait that seemed to never end. When I finally entered the room, I saw my father lying there, pale. His arm was in a cast, a deep cut on his forehead. His eyes were sunken. He tried to smile, but it was a weak gesture. "Isa," he murmured. "What happened?" A truck ran the light. I didn't see it. It was fast. I thought I was going to die. "And why did you ask to see me?" He took a deep breath. The machine next to him recorded his irregular heartbeat. "Because I did everything wrong. And now, in the end, all I can think about is you two. Your mother. You. What I lost." I remained silent. He continued. "I loved your mother. A lot. But at some point, I started to look at her as someone who reminded me of my faults, my failures. And then Anna came along. Young, admired. She made me feel something I thought I had lost. But it wasn't love. It was escape. And the money? The accounts in Mom's name?" He closed his eyes for a moment, perhaps out of shame. "I thought I would solve everything before it went wrong. It was supposed to be temporary, just while I balanced things out. But the lie grows, and before you know it, you're already drowning. You were going to destroy her. Again. I know. That's why I'm asking. If I don't get out of here, take care of her. Take care of your mother. She deserves everything I couldn't be." I stood up. I looked at him one last time. "I'm already taking care of her. What you should have done." And I left. That night, my mother was waiting for me in the living room. I sat next to her. I told her everything, word for word. She didn't cry. She just hugged me and whispered, "May he find peace. Because we will find ours." 2 days later, he was discharged. He didn't call. He didn't come back. He moved to another city. He sent a formal letter asking for a divorce. A plain envelope. No emotion. And with that, he disappeared from our lives like a ghost who finally understood that he no longer had a place. Anna? I never heard from her again. I heard from a friend that she changed her number, left social media, and disappeared from the neighborhood. Maybe she started over somewhere else. Maybe she lives with the guilt she left behind. Maybe not. My mother? She rebuilt herself, slowly, with pain, but with dignity. She went to therapy. She went back to working with crafts. She met new people. And one day, on any given morning, she looked at me and said, "I deserve to be happy. Not despite what I've been through, but because I survived." And I, looking at her, knew that the woman I had admired since I was a child had been reborn. As for me, I learned that the truth hurts. It tears. It bleeds. but it also heals. That the cruelest betrayal is not just the one between the sheets, but the one that kills love in the eyes. And that forgiving is not forgetting. It is choosing to move on even with the scar. This story doesn't have a happy ending. It has a fair ending. Because not all pain needs to be eternal. Some just need to be told, so that it never happens again. If this story touched you, leave your comment below. Do you think she did the right thing by telling her mother everything? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next real stories that will touch your heart. Activate the bell and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. End.